first do want to say that I am not a licensed professional. I am not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I'm no kind of therapist. I'm not a health provider. So if you do feel like you need care, I highly recommend that you seek that out by a professional. And that's something I will recommend throughout this video anyway. I highly recommend therapy. I've had 3 therapists so far in my life. I'm sure I will have more. So that is just something to keep in mind, that this video will reflect my personal experiences, the resources that work for me, and you might be different, but regardless, I do hope this video is helpful. So I want to start by talking a little bit about what trauma is and what it's not. I think that we as human beings do a huge, huge disservice to ourselves by downplaying and minimizing our trauma and our pain and our suffering. I hear it a lot. I've done it a lot myself. It's that thing of, well, you know, it could have been worse, or this thing wasn't as bad as it was for this person, or yeah, this happened, but at least X, Y, and Z didn't happen. And it's doing a disservice to us, because we still are sitting with pain and we are still suffering regardless of how we try to rationalize it in our brains. And it's like we feel guilty for allowing this to be a part of our lives, when there shouldn't be so much shame around it, and we should be able to admit and acknowledge the fact that we are struggling and we need help as well. So maybe trauma is a word that is sort of triggering for some people. They don't like to use the word trauma, but I think most people in this lifetime face trauma in some way, whether it is short-term or long-term. And to me, trauma is anything that sort of distorts your view of reality. It changes what you know to be true. It's something that is traumatizing and painful and difficult, and it sits with you. It's powerful, and it can follow you through life. And it could be anything. Trauma comes in many shapes and sizes and forms, and there is no one right form of trauma. Okay, so just because you are not an Army veteran that is struggling with PTSD doesn't mean that you don't have your own form of trauma. Okay, so as you watch this video, I want you to try to think about that in the realm of your own life, and to maybe begin acknowledging the fact that while your suffering may look different from others, it is still valid, and you still are allowed to acknowledge that suffering. So that's on trauma. And then talking a little bit about healing. Again, I'm going to really dive into a lot of this stuff. I'm sure this will be a longer video for sure, but just a quick note about healing and processing is that in order to live life in a meaningful way and to not be stuck in the past, to not be wrapped up in your trauma, you need to be able to acknowledge and be aware of it and understand it in a way that is not overwhelming to you. So what I mean by that is, you know, we live our lives, and it is inevitable that memories will resurface. Some things trigger memories. Sometimes we hit slumps and we start to think about our past trauma. That's a normal part of life. We cannot just forget the past, and it's not healthy to do so anyway. We don't want to avoid what has happened in our lives. We want to grow from it and learn from it and become stronger because of it. So if you are thinking about trauma, a specific instance of trauma, and you're having a really strong physiological, psychological reaction to it, that is your body and brain's way of telling you that you have not processed and healed from this trauma. You need to be able to reflect on it in a way where, I'm not saying it's going to be comfortable or enjoyable, but in a way that does not impact the it is so critical that we are able to sit in our emotions, we are able to understand and process everything that has gone on so we can start to move away from it in a meaningful way. Not to forget it, but to live life in the present and not to get stuck in the past. Okay, so I guess that was sort of a bit of a long introduction, but I hope it resonates and I hope it's meaningful. So I think I will start by sharing some of my own personal experiences. Like I said, I do have a long list of resources that I'm going to share, either after I talk a little bit or perhaps intermittently, I'm not sure yet. As you know, my videos are always relatively spontaneous. This one I did try to prepare for, but you roll the dice every time. I practice it a different way every time, so. But I just want to also throw in there that while I am not going to get too deep into things, I guess it might be a good idea for me to just put a little trigger warning that I'm going to be talking more about specific incidents of trauma and my personal experiences. So if that's tough for you, if you're not ready for that kind of acknowledgement or conversation, I understand. And, be kind to yourself and feel free to click away if this is too much for you, if you're not ready for it. And if you ever do feel like coming back and ready to sort of deal with some of these topics, then this video will be here. But again, I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds because I'm not sure how helpful that would be. I just want to use some personal examples. So anyway, I guess I will just start from early childhood. This stuff is kind of hard for me to talk about too, so I apologize if I go off track a little bit or ramble, or who knows, maybe I'll have to make some cuts, I don't know. But anyways, I appreciate your patience as I kind of go through this timeline of difficult life experience. So starting off with early childhood, I don't want to touch on too much of this here because I guess just for privacy reasons, I feel like I can share and tell my own stories, but when they involve people that are close to me in my life, I don't feel extremely comfortable getting too deep into that. But I will say that I had a pretty difficult childhood, and I can look back now with sympathy and empathy for my parents because they were very, very young when they had me. My mom was 22 years old when I was born, and I personally cannot imagine having a child at this age. I'm 25 now, and it's just not even on my radar. So I do give them credit for doing their best. I know it's not easy to raise a kid when you are still a kid. So I can look back and I can understand that, but at the same time, it doesn't negate the fact that I carry a lot of emotional damage from situations that went on in my childhood. And there was never any doubt that my parents loved me. I mean, they wanted the best for me, and I think they did try, but they had a lot of demons that they were battling, a lot of issues that really had nothing to do with me, that made it difficult for them to be, an A+ kind of parent. And there is no perfect parent. I know that's the truth. But it was difficult growing up. I had a lot of anxiety. I was on my own a lot. I encountered a lot of stressful, traumatic situations that I didn't know how to handle as a child. And I remember just being in a stressful situation for as long as I can remember, on and off, I didn't have many points in my childhood where I felt truly secure and comfortable, and I don't want to say safe because I didn't feel endangered in any way. I just felt like things were always chaotic. There was always craziness, and it was difficult to relax in that kind of environment. And my parents didn't have a great relationship, so was a lot of shuffling for me. I would stay with one person at a time. I would stay with friends, with relatives, in hotels sometimes. So there are a lot of very physical and obvious examples for why I sort of have this like addiction to chaos, or I struggle with routine or feeling settled, because so much of my childhood was complete mayhem and craziness. And when you are developing in your most formative years, and that is your baseline, it's very hard to have a normal life growing up. You have to do a lot of work to make that happen. And again, I love my parents, I love my mom, I love my dad, but it was hard. It was definitely hard, and I held on to so much resentment and pain for so long, and I'm dealing with that now. And through therapy, I have been helped a lot. When I was younger, I refused to believe that my upbringing would play any role in the type of person that I am and the person that I become. It was my way of sort of controlling the situation and saying, you know what, no, it's not going to have an effect on me. I want no part of this. This is not going to be what my life is like. And of course, that's not how it works. We develop biologically, we develop environmentally, and there's no avoiding it. I am who I am because of my life experience. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that I had to come to terms with, something that I had to really grasp and understand through therapy, and it's helped me to dig into, I guess, my quirks, the things about myself that need work, and it's helpful to see where they come from, to know and to understand. There's a lot of power in that. So that's what I'll say about my younger childhood life. I have a great relationship with my mom now. Things are a lot better. We've both been doing a lot of the work, so that's very positive, and I'm very glad to be there. I'm just going to move the mic really quick. Okay, so moving on. But talking about my childhood, it's obvious that I did have sort of relationship issues with my parents when I was younger. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. And so I think some of you might know this, but I lost my dad when I was 16, a few days before my 17th birthday, actually. And it was really hard. I had a really complicated relationship with my dad, but I did love him, obviously. I would never not love him, but it was hard because things didn't end on the best of terms for us, and as you might imagine, I have carried so much guilt with me because of that. And it's important that I talk about this experience because it is, in a way, a very beautiful example of trauma. I mean, it is the perfect example of trauma. It's one I will never forget. And that sounds crazy, but just let me explain. So my dad, he sort of passed away unexpectedly. He got really sick really quickly, and it was one of those things where there was just nothing we could do about it. And while it was unexpected, I always sort of imagined that my dad would not be around very long based on his lifestyle. He was an absolute happens when you don't deal with them. And I think for men in particular, it's really hard. Men are made to feel like they can't have emotions, like they can't acknowledge that they need help. And it comes out sideways, and it comes out in a lot of external ways, and you end up hurting yourself because of it. So that's a whole other thing that is just needs to be acknowledged better in this society, and I think we're getting there, but you know, that's something I won't ever have to deal with. I am comfortable in acknowledging and admitting and talking about these things, but that's not the case for a lot of people. Not just men, of course, but you get what I'm saying. So anyways, so he passed away unexpectedly, sort of, and this is the example that I want to talk about because it's just crazy. So my dad was in the ICU for a few days, and I was there, obviously, but I couldn't stay the entire time. It was really, really hard to be there, and he wasn't himself. I don't want to get graphic, but basically what was happening is all of his organs were shutting down, and that does a number on your body. There's a lot of swelling, there's a lot of color change, discoloration, and on the skin and the eyes, everywhere. And he was experiencing a lot of hallucinations. He didn't know where he was, and he was terrified. And I just have to say that you guys didn't know him, but he was not afraid of anything. And so to see him in this fragile state, almost like this childhood sense of fear and just wanting to go home, not understanding what was going on, is literally heartbreaking. And I can't talk more about it because I will get upset, but it was a very hard thing to watch. And it was not a good experience, and I wish in some ways that I hadn't been there, because that is the last memory that I had of my dad. And the visual, seeing him chained to an ICU table, to a bed, looking the way he did, almost unrecognizable. I mean, that vision has been implanted in my head. I had dreams about it for years. Just no kid should have to see that. And I felt like, oh, I need to be there for my dad. He needs to know that I'm here. And I think that's true, but also at the same time, I think he wouldn't have wanted me to see him like that. So anyways, I stayed there as long as I could, but I was getting really physically ill being there, like just psychologically, the whole thing. I really couldn't handle it. I was like totally breaking down all the time, and it was made clear over and over that he wasn't getting better. And so I eventually left to stay with some family because I did what I could do. I could not do more than I did. And my mom and my grandma and grandpa, they stayed. So I knew what was going to happen, right? And I'm gonna get the terminology for this wrong. I know it, but actually maybe I won't. But he basically was flatlining. He flatlined multiple times, and the ICU nurses and doctors would bring him back. I don't know, I think the term is resuscitate, but you have to do, my God, I don't know, the things that shock a person back to life. God, I sound so stupid. But they kept doing that, and it got to the point where the doctors were like, listen, we can continue to do this, but it's not going to be good for his brain, for his body. He's not going to operate in the same way. There will be a lot of damage. And I mean, crazy enough, that's something my dad always talked about with us, with me and my mom, was if something ever happens to me, don't make me a vegetable. That's literally what he would say. He would say, just cut the cord, put me out of my misery. I don't want to live if I can't live my life. So it was honest with you, I really feel like he made this decision. I fully believe that he was there in spirit. He was aware of what was going on, because he would only flatline when my family was not in the room. And so the last time he flatlined, again, it was when nobody was in the room, and I know that he was in full power of making that decision for himself. I just know it. Sorry, this is hard to talk about. So anyways, I, again, was staying with family at this time, and I was able to relay messages to my mom to share with him because I was just not strong enough to be there. And I knew it was coming. And finally she called me and she told me that he was gone. And I just remember, here's the moment, I just remember feeling so absolutely devastated for about 30 seconds. And then, I had my family that I was staying with surrounding me. We were all just like crying in this circle, just sobbing together. And like I said, after about 30 seconds of the worst emotional pain I'd ever experienced, my body shut off. My brain and body completely shut off. And I will never forget it because it was such just almost kind of terrifying experience. Like, I stopped feeling anything. I remember I was just hugging my family. They continued to cry, and everything stopped. I stopped crying. I was just sort of like staring off. I didn't really know where I was. I felt like I was looking at myself, but not being myself. I think the term for that is probably dissociation, where I physically could not handle being in my body. I just couldn't. It was too much for me to take. And I went completely numb to everything. Absolutely everything. And that really set the tone for many years of my life, unfortunately. And I think that moment, again, I reference that as like this beautiful example of trauma because that was my body's way of protecting me. And I see that very clearly. It was doing everything that it could to save me, in a sense. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing. It's crazy how powerful the mind and the body are and their ability to take care of you when you need it and sort of allow you to survive and have this flight or fight response. And it looks different for everybody, and there's reasons for it, but I'm really grateful that that happened to me at that time because I don't know what I would have done. And again, I think, I'll talk a little bit about it, but it was also harmful in ways because there's no on and off switch. I can't just say, okay, unnumb yourself, because the reality is that when you're numbing out the bad, you're also numbing out the good. And that took me a really long time to come to terms with, unfortunately. So, for a lot of times, a lot of years, I struggled because I didn't really know how to feel emotions properly after that. And I refused to get any kind of help or care, which in retrospect was not a good idea, but I was 17 at the time, and I can't judge myself for making those kinds of decisions when I was just a kid. So, I struggled with relationships. I struggled with being open and honest about my emotions, and that stuff was already really hard for me. Again, life just changed. And I dealt with that for years. That one specific moment changed my life for years. So do not underestimate the power of trauma and the way that it will sit with you and carry on with you throughout your life. It is not something you can avoid. It will just become a part of you if you let it. If you don't acknowledge it, it will just seep into your bones, honestly. It's very, very powerful. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So I want to talk about maybe one more example. This video is already getting a little bit long, and you know, we all have traumatic experiences, but I'll just give you one more. So shortly after my dad died, maybe, let me see if I can actually think about this. I don't know, maybe 6 months or so after my dad passed away, I met somebody, and I just like completely fell head over heels for them, and it was like everything that every stupid, corny teen movie talks about, right? It's like that, like, can't eat, can't sleep, you're just like constantly thinking about this person, you just want to spend every second with them. It was like that, and it was the first person that I ever felt that way for. It was different, I don't know, I just like was instantly in love, and I thought that's just the greatest thing. And we stayed close friends for about a year, and then it developed into a relationship, and it was my first true relationship, so already that's, you know, pretty monumental. But I bring up the sort of time frame because I was not in any way close to healed or feeling, you know, okay with my dad being gone. I had only just begun to understand it. I was still mourning. cases of self-mutilation because I didn't do XYZ. And obviously, at the time, I just genuinely felt like it was my fault. I didn't see that it was what it really was, which was manipulation, which was mental illness, which was baggage to the nth degree. Not okay, but I didn't know what to do with it at the time. And I still really, really loved this person, like, more than anything, because there was good in that relationship, but it did start to get really bad, and it got to be quite abusive, mostly mentally, but still quite abusive. And so that was really hard, and it was impossible to break it off and to break up because, again, if I did this, then, then I have, on this person's end it was, then I have no reason to live. I don't want to be here without you. I'm gonna be miserable, so I'm just gonna end it. And that is a lot to put on somebody, especially an 18-year-old that just lost her dad. I believed in every fiber of my being that this was the truth, that that's what was going to happen because I just experienced a loss. So it was really, really hard, and I didn't know what to do, and it felt like everything I tried to do to help made things worse. And, again, I was young and inexperienced. I'm sure there's plenty I did that made things worse, but I know deep down that my intentions were always good, whether I was handling it in the best way or not. And again, I thought I was a fixer. I could be the therapist. I could make this person happy, and that's just not how it went. So, long story short, there were a lot of really bad moments, a lot of me being isolated from my friends and family, a lot of being forced into things I didn't want to do, a lot of negative, nasty comments at me, attacking my character, attacking my physical body, attacking whatever, because misery loves company. It truly, truly does. And this back and forth weird attachment that we had, where it was anxious, avoidant. One of us would be anxious, and then that would make the other one avoidant. And there's a whole thing on attachment, and I'm going to talk about a helpful resource with attachment, but really totally unhealthy, toxic, incredible highs, but devastating lows. I mean, it was the hardest relationship I've ever been in. And for that to be my first relationship was also devastating. And so fast forwarding, we broke up probably about 6 or 7 times. We just could not let each other go. And at the end it got really, really bad. It was doing such a number on me. Because as you imagine, the toxicity only got worse in time. So I remember at the end of the relationship, I was in college, my freshman year. That was already hard enough, being away from home, being away from my family and friends, and again feeling even more isolated, and then constantly just arguing with my partner. And it got to the point where at the end I was throwing up multiple times. I was having completely debilitating panic attacks. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I wasn't going to classes, I couldn't even get out of bed. I was so incredibly depressed. And I think I lost 20 to 30 pounds just as a result of all of that happening. I was at my unhealthiest for sure. I mean, since my dad had died, I handled the death of my dad in a very different way. A lot of it I shut out, I numbed it out, I avoided it. I would have sort of these I don't want to say violent, but these crazy outbursts where I would just scream and cry and hit things and hit myself, but those were short term, and then I would go back to feeling numb. That's how I dealt with my dad. I dealt with this relationship in a very different way. Trauma is different in every case. So I handled that really saying angry, evil messages, saying that I was the worst thing that could ever happen to them, that I ruined their life, that I'm a terrible person, just like on and on and on, all of these terrible things, putting it all on me. It's my fault. I should feel bad. I'm guilty. I'm to blame. And that's what people do when they cannot handle looking inwards and accepting what's wrong and acknowledging pain. So it was also a lot of, I never cared about you, I never loved you, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, you're terrible, blah, blah, blah. Which is just pain. It's just pain coming out. And of course I believed all of those words at the time, but I'm able to look back now and say, no, these are the tools this person had in their toolbox. This is how they dealt with pain. This is how they dealt with feeling the way that they felt. Doesn't make it okay. Not by a long stretch, but again, it's so much less personal than we realize. It's just this person was incapable of handling their role in this, of understanding what's going on in their own minds. And this person wasn't ready at the time. I'm not sure if they'll ever be ready. We obviously don't talk anymore. But finally, after I almost had to put out a restraining order, communication stopped, and it makes me sad to this day to think about, because that's not how I wanted things to go. It didn't change the fact that I still cared a lot about this person, that I will always have love for this person. I wish things were different. I wish we could have had a more peaceful and amicable split, that we could one day be friends or catch up in a coffee shop. I still have so much love for that person, but that's unfortunately not the reality. I can't make those things happen, and that's another part of trauma, is you want to finish the cycle. You want to wrap things up in the way that you want them to happen. You want good endings for things, and you can't always create them, and that is so hard for me. And it's sort of like thinking about what happened with my dad. I could not change the history of that. I could not fix it. I could not bring him back. And so what I perceive as a failed relationship is really hard to accept, that I will never see or talk to this person again who had such a profound impact on my life. Obviously in a lot of bad ways, but in good ways too. So it's hard. But those are the two big examples I will give, because this video is already pretty long and I still have a lot to talk about. So I hope you guys are still with me. Thank you for letting me share. I hope I can now sort of piece some other things together. And I bring these things up because about, I don't know how many months, this past September, I feel like there was just a total shift in my brain. Now, with these past issues, I didn't acknowledge them properly. Obviously, I did not acknowledge the loss of my dad, and shortly after my relationship ended, I know I talked about a lot of crazy emotions and bad things happening, but I eventually sort of blocked that out and avoided that as well. I just refused to think about it. Again, doing a huge disservice to myself, because that pain still existed. I just wasn't acknowledging it. So this past September, there was a shift. I can't explain it, but finally I was in this place where all of my emotions were bubbling up, and I felt so weak. I couldn't understand it. I felt like I was on the verge of a breakdown all the time, and it didn't make any sense. And I thought I was going crazy, so I got a therapist and I started to go, and it gave me a lot of good perspective. And I realized that this wasn't a bad thing. I wasn't weak. I actually, for the first time in years, felt strong enough to deal with all of the pain I had been suppressing for years and years and years. My dad died 8 years ago, and I was only then able to start understanding that pain and to feel it and to sit with it. And so I'm still sort of in this period of healing and understanding and processing. And I've been doing a lot of work. Again, I'm going to share that with you very shortly. But what was helpful for me was writing song lyrics and songs and poetry, and literally just sitting and saying something I never let myself do, or thinking about what was upsetting me. Why was I feeling this way? What was triggering this response? I still have a lot of work to do, but I've come a really long way considering, so it's all good. It's just, it's hard when you're finally ready and able to do this work. It's not easy. And like I said, it can take a really long time to get there. It's taken me 6 to 8 years to start addressing some very traumatic experiences in my life, and there's no rhyme or reason to it other than I'm in a place where my brain and body feel safe, they feel secure. I am in a routine, they're in a place where it feels okay to think about these things again. I'm not in a flight or fight response. I am not trying to protect myself. I am not trying to survive. I'm comfortable. And so now I can give time and space to these painful experiences. So with that, I'm going to start sharing some of the resources that have been helpful for me. I have them written down over here. Again, this is just a list that is, sort of personal to me. There's tons of resources out there, you guys. I swear there's a lot to work with. So I hope this can start you off, but this by no means is an exhaustive list, and I hope that you will, if this is what you need, I hope that you will continue the search. Okay, so the first thing I want to share, I'm going to share some books, and this first book has literally changed my life. Let me grab it. Okay, it's called It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. It's by Bessel van der Kolk, M.D. This book has changed my life. I'm not done reading it yet. I've had it for about a year, and you can tell it's kind of like old looking. Books in general take a while for me to read, especially when they hit really hard like this one. This book resonates in a lot of ways, so that's part of why I know I'm not fully healed. I'm healing. It takes me a long time to get through these chapters because they trigger things in me that bring me back to a place where I feel uncomfortable, where I feel overwhelmed. So I have to do it in my own pace, in my own time, and that's an important thing to remember, is you can take as much time as you need. There is no rush on your healing journey. It is yours, it is personal, and it's different for everybody, so don't put yourself on a timeline. If you are like me and you're reading a book like The Body Keeps the Score, and you're getting through a chapter and it's upsetting you, don't feel like you have to keep pushing through. Take a break, put it down, pick up a new book, watch a movie, come back to it when you feel like you can. You want to make sure that your healing process is healthy, especially if you're not doing this work with a therapist. Again, I highly recommend that if you're getting into this place where you are trying to conquer some old trauma, you definitely don't want to do that alone. You can definitely confide in friends and family, but there's no one better for you than a therapist. So again, be mindful of that. Be mindful of your limitations. Go slow, go easy, be kind to yourself, because this is hard work. So I will just read the back of the book to give you an idea of what it's about, but it has been such a blessing to me because I have highlights on highlights on highlights throughout this book. It resonates so strongly, and especially the portions that are about healing and processing trauma. It gives great examples of how to physically get through it and to understand where it comes from, and it allows you to be so understanding and so sympathetic to your body, because your body is doing what it does for a reason. It is protecting you above all else, even if it's frustrating, even if it comes outside ways that you can improve the quality of your life, which is really important if you are suffering, right? The goal is to feel happy and to experience joy. So a lot of this is about finding gratitude within your life and different sort of activities and work that you can do to give yourself the best chance of happiness possible. It is a psychological read, so it's not just like, someone's personal narrative. There is science behind it, so I recommend that. It's by Sonja Lyubomirsky. This is what it looks like. And then a final book that's like sort of scientific. It's called Attached. The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. So this is another good thing to read in tandem with trauma resources, because throughout trauma, throughout our life experience, we develop certain forms of attachment towards others and in our relationships. And again, it's one of those books that's really good to understand where you're coming from, where other people are coming from, and how to deal with that. So highly recommend. And just while we're on the topic of books, this is probably better for the young adult readers, but one of my all-time favorite books is called It's Kind of a Funny Story. And it's this really beautiful, quotable book about a person who's dealing with trauma and their journey through it and the people that they meet on this journey. And it's just a really lovely, wonderful fiction read. Maybe it is nonfiction, actually, I don't know. It's not scientific by any means, but it's a really beautiful story, so I recommend it. Okay, so that's books. That's on books. Okay, and then next I have some resources that are non-book related. I get a lot of my information from social media. That sounds crazy, but social media is a tool and a resource, and a lot of people don't use it like that, but it is. So I personally follow a ton of psychologists and mental health practitioners on Instagram, and they post a lot of great content about healing and trauma and just everyday great life mental health tips and things like that. So I'm going to list a few that I follow on Instagram, but again, I encourage you to find your own. Maybe Instagram's not your platform. You can find these kinds of resources on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on TikTok even. I see tons of psychiatrists and psychologists on TikTok. But here are a few that I follow on Instagram that I enjoy receiving resources from. The first one is The Holistic Psychologist. The Holistic Psychologist. The Holistic Psychologist. Next we have Sit with Sharon. Sit with Sharon. Sit with Sharon. Next we have Global Mental Health Support. Global Mental Health Support. Global Mental Health Support. Next we have, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Nedratawab. Nedratawab. It's spelled Nedratawab. And then I also follow a lot of sort of tarot, astrology, mental health platforms. It's sort of a niche thing, but as you know, I love tarot. I'm going to make a tarot video soon. And tarot is something that resonates with me. It's used for mindfulness and self-development, and I love when they're tied in a mental health sort of way. So the Hood Witch is one that I follow, but there's a ton that I follow. This is just a small sample. And again, if you just type in some buzzwords on your preferred social media platforms, you will find profiles of folks that are doing this work, that are sharing resources. There's probably tons of Facebook groups as well for sharing resources, so I encourage you to look up, some buzzwords, maybe therapy, trauma, healing, mental health, things like that. And then I want to share a really great YouTube resource. has a great video on trauma and healing. And I got a great worksheet, a healing worksheet from her website. So look her up. She has every kind of video under the umbrella that is mental health and self-care and all of that kind of stuff. She's really great. And then of course you can also be searching for podcasts, for videos, for shows, for additional books, read some online articles from, a reputable source, and again, like I said, follow up on some social media. I've heard some great podcasts from people, and again, it's just typing in those buzzwords until you find what you need. And reading online articles has been helpful for me too. So next, I just want to jump into a few physical and mental activities that can be helpful. The number one thing that I have read in my research that is one of the best things you can do is yoga. Yoga is great because it really connects the mind and the body together, because unfortunately a lot of the time these two things are totally separate. We hold a lot of pain and suffering in our bodies and we don't realize it, and it comes out in aches and pains, and we don't even know why it's happening, right? There's just a deficit. There's a lack of connection between the mind and the body. And yoga sort of forces you to do both of those things. You have to be mindful. You're doing practiced breathing. You are, in a sense, meditating in some ways. You have very specific positions that you're doing to empower yourself. It's a great, great exercise. And studies have shown that to be true, that it's really helpful in the healing and processing of trauma. Massage and acupuncture are also really great methods. Again, trying to build that brain-body connection, focusing on the body. We don't give our bodies enough attention. We don't listen to them when they talk to us. So focusing on the body, being mindful of the body is critical. And then next we have meditation and breathing work. That's again helpful when you're thinking about the mind and focusing yourself on what's going on upstairs, in your brain, and just proven to be successful. And then of course, if you're in need of an outlet, running and working out and doing physical activities like dance and climbing and things like that, sometimes you just simply need an outlet. A healthy outlet, and for me it's running. I like to go out for runs when I am just totally stuck, when there's too much going on in my mind, when I just need something. I go for a run. And then more on the mental side, mental activities you can do. Journaling is a great thing. Have a daily journal where you write out your thoughts, your feelings. Whenever I'm in therapy, I do this. I make a list of things going on in my week that I want to talk to my therapist about, dig into a little more deeply. And even without a therapist, it's great to do that work on your own, to just acknowledge what's bothering you, get to the root of it, to process it and sit with it. You can also do other forms of art, right? Like music, poetry, singing, things like that. And you can also do a lot of really wonderful writing exercises. So the healing worksheet that I was talking to you about with, it comes from Levine's website. You can find that. It's this really beautiful worksheet that asks you questions that you type out in sort of paragraph long format form. And it helps you get to the root of a traumatic experience. You can use this worksheet multiple times for different types of trauma. And it's great. When I did it, I just spent a few hours really thinking about this trauma, acknowledging it, crying about it, just feeling all the emotions that come with it. And I felt really good afterwards. So looking for worksheets and activities like that, it can make a huge difference. And then you can also, whenever you're feeling upset, you can write it out, but don't write it out in an analytical way. Write it out in a way of, right now I feel X because X. Keep it very simple. Try to get really in tune with your body and what you're experiencing. So it could be, those emotions and writing them out in a way that is very simple, very easy to comprehend, not analytical. But right now, I am feeling angry, I am feeling sad, I am feeling frustrated. Why am I frustrated? My body is telling me I'm frustrated. It's really a whole process, but it can be so helpful. Just focus on that one thing. Allow yourself to dive into it emotionally and feel everything that comes with it. Okay, so that's great. There's also, you can Google a list of basically feelings. There's this really great worksheet that lays out every kind of emotion and feeling that you can have, basically from happy, sad, frustrated, but it really dives deeper into specific emotions. And it's great if you print this worksheet out or you have it up. You can circle the emotions that you're currently feeling. Again, it's like this practice in allowing yourself to feel what your body is telling you, rather than being analytical about it. Okay, and I don't know enough about this to speak on it, but I know that inner child work has been really helpful. I hear a lot of people talking about envisioning yourself as a child. How would you treat your inner child? Would you talk to them the way you talk about yourself? And can you look at them with sympathy for yourself? Can you try to release some of this guilt, this suffering that you're holding on to, feeling like you're to blame? It's hard work, and again, I don't know enough about it to speak on it, but I recommend looking into inner child work. I hear it's very, very essential. And so that is essentially my list of resources, things that have helped me. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. I encourage you to do your own research and to find what helps for you, because we're all different. And so this video is very long, but I guess the last few things I want to say, it's just that healing and processing, again, it can be a lifelong experience. It can take much longer than we realize and what we think. So it's really important to be kind and gentle with yourself. I've been able to acknowledge so much crazy behavior, blaming myself for everything, being able to look at others kindly and say, I understand where you're coming from. This is past really hard thing to do, but we can do it. I had a really, really bad week a few weeks ago, and it was one that, again, allowed me to acknowledge the fact that I was not healed, particularly about that relationship I talked about. I was just sitting in shame and guilt and feeling upset, and rather than avoiding it and ignoring it, I sat in it. I allowed myself to process for about a week. I allowed myself to sit in my pain, so I cried probably 3 times a day, and would just sob at night, just sob and just feel upset, and allow myself to feel the things that I never felt, allowed myself to think about the things that hurt me, that I always cast off to the side, allowed myself to feel frustration within my own self, but then to come back to my present, my reality. I have trouble with getting stuck in the past sometimes, so for me, while that was a really bad, painful week, it was productive, it was useful, it was helpful, it was beneficial, and at the end of the week, I had to say to myself, okay, take a break, come back to this again when you're ready, when you have another moment like this, but it can't be constant, at least not for me, maybe for you. But for me, I get to a point where I am too overwhelmed, and that's what makes it a slow process, is I need to do it in spurts. And that might be the case for you, but please don't get frustrated with yourself, because your brain and your body protected you for so long for a reason. It's because it's hard. It's hard to deal with. So you can't expect yourself to be able to do it all at once. Just know that in time, it will become easier. You will gain additional resources, understanding. You'll have breakthroughs. You'll have that aha moment. I've had that so many times. And this past year alone, more than I've had in the past years, things finally start to click and connect. And you just need to trust the process and know that you're doing the best you can. I keep saying that because I want you to hear it. You are doing the best you can. You will be okay. It will be okay. You are strong. You are incredible. You can get through this. So, that's really all I have. I'm sure I missed some things, but again, I will try to provide these resources below in the description box. Again, there's so much more out there. I encourage you to look for it, and I really encourage you to seek professional help if you feel like you need it. Therapy should not be a taboo thing. I am very proud to say that I've had 3 therapists. It's great to have that kind of help and assistance, so don't ever feel shame for that. But if you are looking to do this work on your own, there are resources for that. So thank you guys for watching. I will leave it at that. I hope you have a great